This is the Architect Exam Podcast with architect Michael Rasica, the official podcast of the Young Architect Academy.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Architect Exam Podcast. I'm Michael Rasica. Today we're going to talk about test day, specifically how to show up with the right mindset to be successful. And I want to give you some notes that I think are going to prevent you from panicking on test day. And here's the deal. My panic notes aren't a bunch of formulas or building code dimensions to memorize, because you've already done that. We've already done that inside of our courses. Instead, these are mindset strategies that I think are going to have a bigger return on your investment, because I'm just going to assume that you've done the hard work studying for this test. You put in the time, you've learned the material. My panic notes are going to prevent you from screwing this up on test day. And hey, since I know some of you are probably at the gym right now or you're out getting some exercise, so don't feel like you need to write everything down. I've already made you the notes from this podcast. And these notes are going to come in handy right before your exam to prevent you from panicking. You can download and print out these panic notes at youngarchitect.com/panic notes, all as one word. All right, I want to share with you what I've learned first. I've been personally coaching ARE candidates since 2015, talking about taking these exams on a daily basis, working directly one-on-one with people, and also running the largest online ARE community. And you know what I've learned? When you're close to the exam date, this mindset stuff will take you a lot farther than trying to memorize more data the night before. So if you're getting ready to take one of these exams, or if you've got one scheduled in the next few weeks, this episode is for you. And by the end of this, you'll have a clear strategy for the week leading up to your test. You'll know how to handle the unexpected stuff that's going to show up on the exam. And most importantly, you'll understand how to get in the right headspace to walk in there and be successful. All right, let's dive into this. Let's start with something I tell our ARE boot campers, and it's probably one of the most important tactical advice I can give you. 7 days before you take the test, no new content. No new content. 7 days before you take the test. I'm going to make a safe assumption here that you've spent a good amount of time studying for this exam. Maybe it's been a few months or weeks. Maybe it's been longer. Either way, you've put in the work. So here's what I want you to understand. Those last 7 days before your test should be reserved exclusively for getting a deeper understanding of the stuff you have been studying. It's time to go back and revisit everything you've looked at, all the stuff you've previously gone through. Go deeper on the concepts you already know. The real deadline for studying, in my opinion, is 7 days before you take the test. And then that last 7 days, it's about getting a deeper understanding of it. Here's something we actually do in the ARE bootcamp during those final 7 days. Practice having a study session that's the same time frame as your actual test. These exams range from 3 to 4 hours, depending on which one you're taking. And if you have really bad ADD like I do, sometimes sitting at a desk for 3 to 4 hours is just hard enough. But if you can practice that while you're studying, I think that's going to make taking this test a lot easier for you. But here's another problem I see all the time. Someone may have been very well prepared to take the exam. They've done the work. They're in good shape. But then 3 days before they take the test, they crack open some practice questions from a publisher they haven't studied or used before, and they freak themselves out. They see some questions they don't know or how to answer, and suddenly they think that they're not ready, when in reality, they're probably in pretty good shape. So don't do that to yourself. Stick with what you know, go deeper on the material you've been working with, and trust the process you've been following.
You're listening to the Architect Exam Podcast, your guide to passing the ARE.
And this brings me to the night before your exam. Here's what I want you to understand. There's nothing you're going to do 24 hours before you take the test that's going to make a difference on whether or not you pass or fail it. Nothing. There's a lot that goes into preparing for these exams. So 24 before the exam, you should just focus on 4 things. The first is to show up and be there 15 minutes early. Second is to be well rested. Third is to have a good breakfast. And the fourth, I'd say, is making sure you're ready to rock once that test begins. And that's pretty much it. Now, here's something I used to do that might work for you. This is totally optional, but I just want to share it. Now, the morning of my exams, before I took the test, I would use flashcards, but with very specific rules. First, I would only use the flashcards that I made myself. And second, I would always use the stuff I already knew. I'd use the easy questions, the easy flashcards. If you're using the Young Architect Academy, we break our questions into beginner, intermediate, and hard levels. So on test morning, I'd go through the beginner or the intermediate ones. And the purpose wasn't to try to learn anything new. It was to really just wake up the brain. and to push through some information. So when I got to the test, I wasn't crawling out of bed, and the exam wasn't the first thing I was seeing in the morning. It was like a warm-up. Again, totally optional, but if it feels right for you, keep it light, keep it easy. Now let's talk about something that happens to everyone who takes these exams. No matter how hard you study for one of these exams, you're almost guaranteed to see questions that have nothing to do with the stuff you've been studying. This actually happens to everyone. And I want you to keep in mind that NCARB is messing with you. They're trying out questions. Not every question on these exams is scored. There's a handful of questions that have no score attached to them. Whether you choose the right answer or the wrong answer, it doesn't really matter to your final result. NCARB is testing out new questions to see how many people respond and react. They're gathering data for future exams. So here's the strategy. Stay calm. Just because you saw some crazy question that has nothing to do with what you've been studying doesn't mean you've done a bad job preparing. And that's the game that we're playing here. Focus your time and energy on answering the questions that you can confidently answer during the time you have to take this test. Don't get thrown off by the weird stuff. It's supposed to be there. I will guarantee you're going to see it. And here's another thing to keep in mind. When you walk in there, your brain's not warmed up yet. You might not know the answer to a question right away. That doesn't mean you don't know the answer. NCARB isn't testing your ability to memorize things. This isn't a spelling bee where you either know how to spell the word or you don't. They're testing your ability to make the right decisions. And sometimes you have to think about these decisions for a little bit. It's going to take your brain a little while to get warmed up and start recalling information at a moment's notice. And there's a rhythm that you get into when you're taking these exams. So be patient with yourself and know that the first 20 minutes, you need to be easy with yourself and let yourself get warmed up. We don't walk into the gym and immediately start lifting the heaviest weights. No, we start by just lifting the bar without any weight, and then we slowly work our way towards lifting the heavier weights. Same strategy here. Now I want to talk about something that I think stops a lot of people from becoming a registered architect and succeeding on these exams, and that's negative self-talk. I see people repeatedly tell and convince themselves that they could never pass the architect exams. They'll never accomplish this goal. They're not smart enough, they're not prepared enough, or maybe they're not even handsome enough to ever be a registered architect. And telling yourself this doesn't help, especially when you're showing up and trying to succeed. So here's what you need to do instead. It's start visualizing yourself going up, taking the test, and passing it, moving on to the next one, or finishing this process entirely. The sooner you start to see this success in your brain, the faster the universe is going to follow. I know this might sound a little woo-woo to some of you guys, but I've seen this work over and over again. In our bootcamp curriculum, we give our students lots of affirmations to start to rewire the negative self-talk going on in their brains. People who succeed on these exams are the ones who can see themselves succeeding. They've already won the test in their mind before they even sat down to take it. So instead of that negative self-talk, I want your brain to do the opposite, which brings me to something really important. And that's whether this is your first test or your last test, I want you to understand something. Just to be here and take the architect exam, you've already graduated from a very expensive and challenging architecture program. You found the time, money, and energy to study for one of these tests. If you're taking the architect exam, you're already very successful in life. You've come a really long way, and I want you to acknowledge this. Pass or fail. The stuff you're learning is the information that you're going to need to be successful as an architect. The fact that you're learning this and taking this exam is a commitment to this career that you've chosen for yourself. Really get clear about that and just feel that for a second. Feel proud of the work that you're doing and carry those feelings into that test with you when you show up. Be in the right headspace to walk in there and be proud of what you need to do. And here's something else I want you to remember. This goal of becoming an architect, it didn't start when you started taking these NCARB exams. This started the day that you decided you were going to architecture school. You've been working at this for a really long time, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even longer. And now here we are at the architect exam. You've come a really long way. And we can't pass these tests unless we take these tests. So be proud of yourself. And that's the main point here. Next, I want to give you a reality check based on NCARB's own data. And I'm going to simplify this for you. Everyone is failing the architect exam. Everyone. Everyone that works at Young Architect has failed at least 4 or 5 exams. I failed 4. Lorenzo failed 4 or 5 tests. Emily, Layla, they failed a bunch of times. Even our boot campers we work with. No one's passing these exams the very first time they take them. So here's the mindset shift I want you to make. If the goal is to get to the finish line, then understand you're probably going to have to fail a few tests along the way. And if you understand that failing a few tests is part of the journey, you're going to get to the finish line. And you'll get there way faster. You can't really fail a test you get to retake. So failing these tests isn't the worst thing in the world. What matters is your ability to mentally say, I'm in the middle of this journey and failing a test is not going to derail me. I'm going to keep studying. I'm going to keep retaking these exams, and we're going to keep moving forward regardless of what happens. And here's something beautiful about ARI 5.0 that didn't exist in the previous version. Let's say you failed PCM as your first test. Good news. A lot of the work you did studying for that PCM exam, probably about 50% of the same stuff you're going to need to do for the PJM exam. So you can go study for the PJM and then go study for the CE exam and then come back for the PCM exam. And that retake's going to go a lot easier. Same thing with PPD and PDD. The overlap of topics between these two tests is probably close to 100%. And this overlap didn't exist in ARI 4.0, but it's huge in ARI 5.0. And here's the beautiful thing, is let's say you didn't pass the first test. It wasn't a waste of time because it's taking people between 700 and 1,300 hours of studying to pass all these tests. So even if you didn't pass that exam, all that studying still counts towards the total amount of work it's going to take you to get to the finish line. When I failed my structures exam on ARI 4.0, there really wasn't anything I could do to prepare me for my building systems exam. But in 5.0, when you fail the PCM exam, a lot of the same stuff overlaps with the other exams. So go work on that next exam and keep moving forward. This is almost like a game we're playing here. If you want to stack the cards in your favor, the best thing you can do is work hard, be confident, and be persistent.
You're listening to the Architect Exam Podcast, the official podcast of the Young Architect Academy.
All right, let me tell you something. Persistence is probably the most important quality you can have when it comes to the architect exam. It's more important than being smart. It's more important than being talented. It's more important than getting perfect practice test scores. Guys, persistence is saying, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to keep doing this until it's done. Quitting is not an option. I know a lot of people who are way smarter and more talented than I am who never got their architecture licenses. And you know why? Because they're really smart, so they didn't study hard enough. They didn't have to because they're so smart, but they didn't pass their first exam. And then they just gave up on it. They gave up on the dream of becoming a registered architect. They might be smart and talented, but they don't have the persistence quality. And I think persistence is way more important. Here's the thing about persistent people. They don't see failure as the end of the story. They see it as information. They see it as part of the process. When persistent people fail a test, they ask, what can I learn from this? How can I study differently next time? What do I need to do to get better? When non-persistent people fail a test, they think, maybe this is just not cut out for me. Maybe I should just give up. Guys, the architect exam is designed to test your persistence just as much as it is to test your knowledge or decision-making skills. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would be a licensed architect and it wouldn't mean anything and it would have no value. Don't be one of the people who gives up on this goal. You've already come too far for that. Let me share something with you that completely changed my perspective on these exams. When I founded Young Architect back in 2013, I realized something. The thing that brought me the most success on the architect exam wasn't just about passing a test. It was about learning and mastering the body of knowledge it takes to pass these exams. I quickly started to realize that this information was helping me do my job better in the office. It helped me understand how architecture works as a business, as a practice. I believe this is the best education an architect could ever get because this isn't what they taught us in architecture school. I truly believe that this is the most important phase of an architect's career, and that's learning how to practice. And the curriculum is absolutely fascinating once you figure out how to play this game. So here's the mindset shift I want you to make. Focus on becoming a great architect, not someone who just passed a test but didn't learn anything. Study with the intention of using this information on your projects and with your clients. That's what we're really studying here. This approach makes it so much easier to show up every day. It gives you so much more confidence, and you'll start to realize that taking this test is a lot easier when you understand the concepts at its core versus trying to memorize data the night before. All right, let's wrap this up. Keep the bigger goal in mind. You're not just trying to pass a test. You're working on becoming a great architect. When you focus on that, all these strategies we talked about today will help ease the panic and stress on test day. Now, remember the 7-day rule we talked about. No new content in that final week. Remember that NCARB is going to throw some weird stuff at you, and that's totally normal. Remember to stop the negative self-talk and to feel proud about how far you've come. And remember that failing a test or two is part of this journey. It doesn't mean you're not cut out for this. understand that being persistent is the most important quality you can have. I've got a downloadable PDF version of these panic notes that you can print out and take with you. You can grab them at youngarchitect.com/panic notes. All right, take a deep breath. You've got this. Thanks for listening to the Architect Exam Podcast. I'm Michael Rosica. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Architect Exam Podcast. Ready to take your studying to the next level? Visit our online ARE Architecture School website at academy.youngarchitect.com to learn more about how we can help you. See you next time.